The opinions expressed on the Custody Queen Show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal, professional legal advice. The persons discussed are fictional and not based on actual clients.
Thought it was love, had kids in between. You can count on us, we're the Custody Queens. Yeah, you can count on us, we're the Custody Queens.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm Sam McBride. I'm here with my favorite blonde, Kristen Holstrom. As you guys know, we are the Custody Queens, and we are so excited to spend this time with the Go Country family. Before we get started on today's episode, which we are so excited about, I'd like to give a big shout out to our brothers on law. If you aren't listening to their show, you need to start. They are the half an hour before our show. Don't miss it.
Rob and Larry are awesome, and I thoroughly enjoy listening to them every Saturday with my cup of coffee before we listen to ourselves.
Okay, so now it's time for our TMI segment. Kristen, go ahead and take it away.
And just to tell our listeners, TMI, for those of you who do not know, stands for too much information. And I just want to say something really quick before we do our TMI. When I listen to our shows, because I do religiously listen to our shows every Saturday, it's kind of a family event at my house every Saturday morning. I listen to Brothers on Law with my family. My daughter listens. She thinks it's great. She always comments, "The Custody Queens are on, Mom." And I listen to our TMI, and I always kind of laugh. And my friends always text me and comment and tell me how funny it is listening to the show, because they comment how real it is listening to Sam and I, and how much they can seriously see us while listening to us. And I just want to say that I really wish sometimes I could be less myself on the show, because Sam and I are so real.
I wouldn't like you if you weren't yourself, Kristen.
I actually said to someone the other day, I sometimes I wish I could be less vulnerable and less real and more poised. But it's just not who I am. I am definitely a get what you see kind of girl, and I'm just very real.
Yeah, and I think that really brings up a good point with our TMI segment in general. And Kristen and I together, we get up, we spend 12 hours every day working on your cases, and we are very passionate about being perfect and creating the absolute perfect case plan for everyone. We literally live, eat, breathe this stuff. But when we're not on the clock, which is rare, we're ourselves. We're human beings. We want everyone to know that we are. And I think it brings empathy to our clients and to everyone around us. We're real people too. We have real feelings.
We are, and I think we're fun. I think that people who know us think we're fun. And Monday through Friday, 7 to 6, we are dotting every I and crossing every T. And I can tell you, our settlement proposals are incredibly well written, and we advocate better than any attorneys that I know. We truly are the best of the best, and we are passionate, and we are educated, and we are experienced. But like Sam said, when we are off the clock, we want to have some fun. We want to kick those heels off and let you guys get to know Sam and Kristen and the Custody Queens. And with that said,
Kristen's procrastinating pulling a question out of the jar.
Hey, I just said, with that said, I'm going to pull from the jar. All right, be easy on me. All right, so the question is, if you could deliver a speech to the entire world, what would you say? I actually really like this question, and I think it comes at a really unique time right now. If I could deliver a speech to the entire world, I would tell the world to be kind, especially where we are at right now. We have the holidays coming up. We have the election coming up. We have just a lot going on in the world. And I would say that I don't know what is going on in your life, and I don't know what's going on in your children's life. And I would just say, be kind. Let love rule.
I love that.
Nobody is aware of the personal challenges that anyone else is going through internally, and how the pandemic has affected anyone else's personal life or family life. Just let love rule and be kind, people. Just be kind.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely great. advice, Kristen. And I think that we often forget and we get caught up in our own lives that we forget that everyone else also has really, really important things going on. And a small act of kindness to anyone can really just mean the difference.
Yeah, Sam and I have, we have someone that we work with, and this person, it's someone we worked with for a really long time, and she's probably listening to this show, and she took the time out of her day this past week, and she took the time to write Sam and I an email, and the email started with "thank you" in all caps, and she thanked us for about 27 things that we've done for her over the years. And to her, Sam and I's acts truly have been a life changer to her. And to Sam and I, we were just doing our jobs. But I cannot tell you how much that email meant to me and how much it meant to Sam.
Yeah.
And it really actually kind of put the wheels in motion in my head. And I actually set out and wrote a few thank you notes to people in my life that probably needed to hear the same thing. But to that person, you know who you are. You're listening to our show. You know who you are. Thank you for that, because you made a huge difference in Sam and I's week. And I hope and I encourage all of our listeners to thank someone in this upcoming week for someone that has done something kind to you.
I agree. All right, it's my turn. I'm in the hot seat. What is your least favorite fast food place? I know I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but I'm going to have to say McDonald's. And here's why. I'm real confused with them going back and forth on this whole we serve breakfast, we don't serve breakfast thing. And all I ever want from McDonald's is breakfast. Sometimes I have to, settle for some chicken nuggets, but I would say I'm frustrated with the change in McDonald's menu.
Well, and let's just say, I don't even know that they're chicken nuggets. Let's just put that out there.
Oh, they're chicken nuggies.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Every now and then I love, I have an obsession with the chicken nugget that's like shaped like the boot, like that one in there. But I am a little concerned that it's not chicken.
I think it's fabulous.
But yes, no, I think.
But it's still my least favorite place. I don't know.
I think it's a limited menu on the breakfast.
Fair. All right. Do you have one, Kristen?
My least favorite fast food. I'm taking an extraordinary long time to answer this question. I try to avoid fast food as much as I can, but probably like Jack in the Box. Yeah, probably Jack in the Box. I don't know that they have.
Jack's going to be very happy about that.
I don't think they have anything that just absolutely grabs my attention. Burger King,
But you get a hat there. And you like Crowns.
I do love Crowns.
So Burger King's got to be our number one.
Yeah, I don't know that I visited them in a very long time.
You got to go to the BK Lounge. Get a crown.
All right, I'll put that on my to-do list this week.
All right, so let's get into it. The topic of today's episode is service. What do we mean by service? We mean you get hit with a lawsuit. Someone hands you a stack of legal documents and you feel like you're going to cry or you run away. What do? We think it's a really important topic to talk about because the laws are different kind of across the board and obviously across the state. And we just want to make sure that everyone understands this is not a situation where you want to procrastinate. So when you get served with a legal document, you may be getting served with a document a variety of different ways. One of the most general ways to do this is personal service. Sometimes you have to be personally served with a legal document. That's often the case at the onset of any lawsuit. This is not just specific to family law, although we are, for the most part, going to be talking about family law. But when you get a envelope or someone comes up to you or you get something in the mail, the first thing you need to do is open it and look at it. Do not procrastinate it. And Kristen's going to talk a little bit about why it is so important to not procrastinate when somebody hands you a stack of documents and you may not know the first thing to do, but go ahead, Kristen.
So in a family law case, if you are served, generally personally served, because that would be valid service for a summons and a petition, which is generally what is filed to initiate a family law case, whether it's a summons and a petition to establish parental rights, you have a specific time period to respond. So by ignoring those documents and shoving them in your car or leaving them on your porch or throwing them, you can really affect your rights in the case.
And here's why. Because if you get served with, for example, a packet for a request for divorce or dissolution of marriage, which is what we normally call it in the industry. When you get served with that, if you freak out and you do nothing, you run away, you pretend you didn't get served, and you just ignore it, after a certain period of time, the other party is going to be able to move forward with taking what is called your default. That does not mean that you are blocking that person from divorcing them. That means actually quite the opposite. They're going to move along the case without you. You do not want anyone to move a case along without you, because a lot of times people will say things that you have evidence that rebuts that, and you don't want to be in that situation. Yes, there are things you can do to potentially get out of it if you haven't actually been served, but service is the start of everything, and the clock really does run the second you get handed that packet. So what, Kristen, would you say is the first thing you do when you open up that packet?
So the first thing I would do is I would contact an attorney. I would not contact my friend. I would not post on Facebook in my mom's group or my dad's group or my local community group and ask for advice on what I should do regarding the documents that I would serve with. And it's kind of funny, as an attorney and a very active member in my community, I see this happen all the time. And remember, your neighbor is generally not a qualified attorney to give legal advice. Your best friend is absent being licensed to practice law, is generally not qualified to do that. But I would contact a attorney, specifically someone in that area of field. So if it's a civil case, contact a civil attorney. If it's a family law, contact Sam and I, the custody queens. We got you. We do offer free assessments to talk about your case and where you go from there. But that's the first thing I would do. Figure out what your options are. Okay, there are time limits. You generally have to file a response to that summons and petition within 30 days. There is some time for mailing if it's a document that had to be served by, or if it was allowed to be served by mail. So that's the first thing I would do, Sam.
Yeah, and I would say a close second to that is making sure that even after you contact an attorney or you have a telephone call set up with an attorney, that you read everything, even the stuff you don't know, because a lot of times there will be a court date or some other time-sensitive, responsive action that you need to take. And so you just want to be aware of that. It's not to scare you, but this is not one of those things that you can just ignore. Trust me, in my off time, when I'm not working, I love to procrastinate. During work, though, I can't do it. And if you get served with a lawsuit, no matter what kind it is, the first thing you need to do is something. Doing nothing is absolutely detrimental to your case, I would say, across the board.
Yeah, and a lot of times service is improper and it wasn't done right. So if you are, I mean, obviously there's always exceptions, or sometimes it can be agreed upon to accept it by mail, or an attorney can agree to accept it, or there's a notice of acknowledgement and receipt, which we can discuss in a little bit more detail later. But generally the initial divorce documents have to be personally served. But sometimes they're dropped in a mailbox, sometimes they're dropped on your front doorstep, which may not be valid service. So you always want to contact an attorney, describe and explain the way you received the documents, take a picture if necessary, calendar any court dates that are noted in those documents, and if there is a mediation date, make sure that you note that as well, because sometimes when I talk to people, there's a court date that's already been passed and you have options, and so it's important to be able to discuss all of those issues with the attorney.
Yeah, and with family law and kind of this episode in general, we don't necessarily need anyone out there to understand whether or not service was proper or what it was or what happened. What we really need you to do is call us or consult with an attorney. There's a lot of different types of service depending on where you're at in the case. And so sometimes you may need to mail serve, sometimes you need personal service. Kristen just talked about what's called a notice of acknowledgement and receipt. That's simply the process of agreeing that you've been served on a particular day at a particular time. Why would you ever do that? Well, I can give you a good example. If you are at work and you know that you are divorcing your spouse, or your spouse has initiated the process of getting a divorce from you, but you don't want to be embarrassed at work. You want to work it out, you guys have kind of talked about it, then you may agree to accept service outside of the you've been served scenario by a process server or someone else. So you really just want to contact an attorney so they can let you know, hey, based on your case, based on what you've been served with, we're either going to object and make a claim that service hasn't properly been effectuated, or we're going to respond.
And you do not have to say you've been served.
But it's cool. It's cool.
It's not like the movies. If someone hands you documents and they did not say you've been served, that does not mean that you have not been properly served.
I still think it sounds really cool.
It does sound cool.
If you go up to someone and say, you've been served.
At the beginning of my legal career, I have served a few people, and I always thought I had to say, you've been served. And so it was kind of funny as I've evolved in my career. I look back at my younger self, kind of laughing at myself, thinking I did not have to say, you've been served.
So you bring up kind of an interesting point. Do you need to have a formal process server or someone that does that for a living serve you with legal documents?
There are two types of servers. There is a server that is qualified to do so, and then there is someone that is over the age of 18 and that is not a party to the action.
And that's a very important part, right? So you can't actually serve the other side with your own divorce documents. You have to get a third party over the age of 18 to do so.
Yes, that is the case.
And Kristen, you have a pretty funny story we were talking about way back when having to serve someone, huh?
Yeah, I think I was 19. I was working for my employer at the time, and he sent me to serve someone that actually worked at a cemetery, and he was a grave digger. And so here I was, my 19-year-old self, and I had to go serve a divorce, summons, a petition, and all the associated documents that went with it.
At the cemetery.
At the cemetery, and he worked the night shift because this person I was serving literally dug graves. So I think his shift started at like 10 at night. So I literally drove to the cemetery myself at 10 p.m. and I'm searching the grounds of the cemetery, looking for this employee myself. And I had to ask a few people. It was kind of interesting how many people actually work at the cemetery at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And the person I served was actually very, very nice. But now I look back at the age I am now going, I can't believe I did that at 10 p.m. at night when served a gravedigger by myself. But the guy was very nice. But yes, I do have an interesting service story.
Funny. And it sort of brings up a really good point that sometimes you have to get a little creative with service. So sometimes you are not the person being served, right? You're the person initiating the divorce. And so you have to find someone that may be hiding from you or trying to evade service.
Yeah, I actually had another person that I was serving early in my career, and I served them, and they actually threw the documents back at me, got in their car, and actually tried to, follow me in their car. And I think that person thought that because they threw the documents out of the car, that meant that they weren't served. So anyone out there, who is doing serving type jobs, remember, it can be a little dangerous of a job.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now I think it's time to take a message from one of our listeners. What do you think, Kristen?
Yes, let's do it.
Hi, Custody Queens. I have a question. I am a grandma, and my daughter is not allowing me to see my grandchildren. And I was wondering if I have any recourse that I will be able to see them. I have a couple of grandkids, and I miss them. And I want to know what I could do to make sure that I get to see them. Thank you.
So that is a great question, and it's often something we hear about all the time. The actual path that you may take to try to get some formal rights is going to be different from state to state. So the first thing we would say is give us a call so we can really know more about your case and what potential you would have to move forward with some sort of rights with the court. With that being said, in general, grandparents are afforded at least some visitation under the family code, potentially. It's not an easy topic, and it's often hard to prove, and most grandparents don't get as much time as they want, but it's definitely something that you want to go through and consult, because there are those rare cases where a pre-existing relationship is in existence, and you may need to join yourself to a case or move forward with asking for some rights. It's very fact dependent, and so we would say, hey, give us a call. Let's get to know a little more about your case and see how we can help you out.
And that is a loaded question. That is very case specific. We would love to speak with you and go over each fact of your case, because it is such a detailed analysis, and it is such a loaded question, and we need to provide strategy. And is there a pre-existing relationship? How long have you been in the children's life? What was your role in the children's life? Where are the parents? Why aren't you able to see the children? Are the parents still alive?
We should do a show about it.
I think we are. I think it's coming up in the books, but we'd love to speak with you. That is not something we can cover in a 3-minute segment in a Q&A. So if you're listening to this and you ask this question or you have this question, please give us a call, and we can have a full consultation with you and get into detail on that question.
Absolutely. So I think it's time for CQ Court. What do you think, Kristen?
Let's do it.
All right. So this week we're going to have a topic related to service, the topic of our show. Kristen is going to represent Sally, who has effectuated service, and I'm going to be the judge.
Okay, so, and I want to just put it out there for everyone listening. When we do these CQ courts, they are supposed to be dramatic. They are supposed to be over the top. When I represent the client, this is generally not how I would represent the client in court. It is dramatic because I want all of our listeners to see how ridiculous some of these issues are.
And to illustrate a legal point.
Yes, to illustrate the legal point, and then we follow up with exactly what that legal point is and break down that legal point. So today I represent Sally Service. And Your Honor, what happened here in this case is my client's adult child, Adam, was the one who actually served the summons and petition to the opposing party, Bob, and the issue that's going to be presented here is whether or not service was valid. An opposing party is going to argue that service was not valid. And while it might not have been the best choice to use the party's adult child, Your Honor, I believe that we both know that service was valid.
Thank you, Counselor. You know, I will say that service here may have been lawful, but it's awful. What I mean by that really is you're right, and service has been effectuated under the code. Someone over the age of 18 has served the other party in this case, and that person, in this case an adult child, is not actually a party to the action because the family court no longer has jurisdiction, and in no set of these facts have I seen that he is otherwise entangled in this case. With that being said, do I think it's a good idea for you to tell your adult child to serve his dad? No. But under the eyes of the law, that doesn't really matter. So I agree, service has been properly effectuated.
Agreed, Your Honor. And just a little side note on that, under no circumstance would Sam or I ever advise any of our clients to use their adult children, adult or not, to serve the other parent in this case. Children are not to be used in any part of the case whatsoever, adult or not. It is just not. Children should never be put in the role of being mangled in the divorce case at all. They just shouldn't.
And also, look at it from the point of view of how is this going to help me come to any sort of settlement if that's even a possibility. People will think they can't come to a settlement on their case, and maybe not right away, but this does not set the stage for amicability. It just doesn't. It tastes bad, even if it is something that we can legally do. You're not going to put the other party in a position where they're going to want to hear you out or come to some sort of agreement to avoid legal fees, costs, time, court, trial. It's just not a good thing.
No, and it's not a good look. I mean, as a parent, I couldn't imagine using my child, 18, 19, 20, as the messenger to serve the other parent with any legal document. Imagine what you're asking, that even whether it's an adult or not, that is still both parties' child. I mean, the role of the parents is to love the children, not to use the child as a messenger. And whether or not that was valid service, I can tell you I would never allow my client to use their child as a messenger and as a server. Go hire a process server for $100 and do it the right way, period.
And if you can't afford that, there's plenty of people over the age of 18 that can do the service for you. Plenty out there.
Yeah, and if you need suggestions on who you should use as a server, or if you're getting advice that your adult children should be used as a server, again, that's bad legal advice, and you should be calling the custody queens, and you should be hiring a new attorney. So basically, to sum up our episode, Sam, you've been served. What are a few things that you want our listeners to take home from this episode?
I would say, number one, don't procrastinate. Put your big girl or boy panties on. And number two, don't use your children. It's tacky.
And 3, hire counsel, specifically the custody queens. And with that said, this has been a great show. 30 minutes is never enough.
Nope.
Seriously, I actually get a lot of comments that we need an hour, but that would be so much more preparation. I don't know that there's enough time in our week for an hour. But if you are looking for legal counsel or you need an assessment on your case, please go to our website, custodyqueens.com, fill out an inquiry. Sam and I will get back to you, and we will definitely assess your case, figure out what your options are, see if you need a second opinion. Please call us at 1-800-419-7772. That's 1-800-419-7772.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. Kristen's handle is at Custody Queens Kristen. My handle is at Samantha McBride. And Kristen, today I really liked your answer to the TMI about the speech. So what is it that you want to tell all of the listeners out there?
Let love rule.